we are now going to move into the reflection and assessment piece. Okay, so Help Me Talk About Math is a great program that's open to grade 1s. If you have a grade 1 teacher that's interested in being trained, let me know right away, because right now we can still get Turtles and iPads for free, and now I am trained, so I can train the trainers. So Carol and I did a session with the language arts version of that, and I did the math one not long ago, so we trained up probably about, was it 15 or so teachers between the two? Yeah, about 20 altogether. It's really, really good. But the thing is, you don't have to have the training to use the Help Me Talk About Math app game. And it's like something that can be done at home. It's on Apple. It's coming for Android. It's not quite here yet. But it's totally free, and it's just a great little tool. So keep in mind that's available. And if you have a grade 1 teacher that you think might want to be trained, let me know sooner than later, and I can maybe put together another group and reach out and see if I can get some more materials and do some training for that.
Yeah, and the resources on the right are in relation to the provincial math assessment, which we did talk about and explored some of our SunWest data on day 1. We made mention that there are a lot of resources to support that, but just highlighting a few here. I'll speak to some of them on the next slide, but basically they're all in relation to that ESSP goal of by June 2020, 80% of our students will be scoring at or above grade level in math. On the number strand, we had some woohoos in terms of our SunWest results already, and I'm looking forward to how that shakes out this year too. So on the next slide then, just a couple I was going to highlight. There's a number of links available. We can get to them from the resource bank. We can also get to them through the ministry website. There's some great information in here. Something I just wanted to highlight, which I thought were awesome. There's some parent pamphlets that you can click on this folder. And actually, I just printed out the ones for grade 2, 5, and 8. But there's some really awesome ideas for parents in terms of math strategies that they're able to work with their young people on at home. And that's provided for all grade 1 to 9 levels. There's some pamphlets there and some information. Some other kind of areas that might be useful, and Kelly, if you want to advance to the next slide just by clicking on those different folders, there's some information on math outcome questions, and there's quite a bit of detail there. Just keep in mind that pretty much the 2, 5, and 8 is there for everything. Some of the grade 1 to 9 information is still being worked on or added. And this is just an example of one, and it works through, and there's information provided to support the teacher in terms of the sample questions, the answer key, the assessment or rubric involved. So it's all kind of built in and ready to use. Oh yeah, this is just kind of mentioning as a bit of a grid, kind of where they're at with the resources for all the grade levels, but there's been progress on everything. So keep checking back.
And then in the resource bank on the Math Hub, there is a math assessment collection. So all these things that Vanessa is talking about are in there. And remember, you can save them. So once you find them, you can save them to your own folder so that you don't have to go back and find them again. You know, you can think of it like a Pinterest. You make yourself a folder instead of a board. And then those things are there for you. Coming soon to a resource bank near you will be an assessment hub. And so this collection will live on there as well, but there will also be a whole collection just for ministry assessment on that new hub that's coming. We're tracking outcomes. We have the one specifically for math available in the resource bank, but also just the iCan if you're looking for the general ones, all in one with the placemat. Those are available in there as well. And again, as I just finished saying, don't forget that you have Mathletics here, and then when Nicole was talking, she talked a lot about the power of that observation. So having the kids play the games and watch them. So just keep in mind that it doesn't necessarily have to be something formal and written. You can just learn a lot just by watching your kids.
So this one, some of you will have will recognize this as from Kathy Schrock's work on Discovery Education. So it's good for us to have different ways of tracking, not only to keep track of what's going on, but we also use these for the identifying of gaps, right? So those kids that aren't making progress and we're not really sure why, it helps to have that list of things. So what I like about this one is it gets to that pre-conventional stage of math where those kids who aren't on curriculum yet necessarily, or you look at the kindergarten grade 1 outcomes and you go, well, we're not even sure if we're ready for that. So this pre-conventional stage kind of looks at, well, what does math learning look like from ages 3 to 5 before they enter our doors? And the color coding is by strand. It's not organized according to curriculum or grade, but ever so often you're going to meet a tier 3 student that we just kind of need it to be not attached to a curriculum. It will eventually, you can take those pieces and move them across, but just to see the progression. So, if the first one, count small sets of objects, actions, and sounds. So we often think about the tangible piece, but what about that student that is having trouble counting how many syllables? There's a math issue that's transferring into their reading, and things like that.
When we're talking about Hattie, one of the effect sizes for response to intervention is actually 1 7/100. So it's over a 1.0 effect size. So you have to be thinking about response to intervention. This page is actually taken from the Sask Math document. I'm hoping that all of you have seen that document. If not, it is in the resource bank available for download. It was developed, actually, a provincial math team started to develop that handbook to mirror Sask Reads, and then funding fell apart, and then one school division actually finished it, and
now it's restarting. Yeah.
now that Provincial Math Group is going to be up and running again. But lots of good work in there. So if you have not seen a document called Sask Math, go to the resource bank and download it.
It's in the professional learning collections. Yeah.
So keeping in mind, if response to intervention
everything
is over a 1 effect size, we always start with most of our students are going to remain in tier 1. They're going to be our green students who, with good classroom-based instruction, they're going to be successful. And on here it talks about knowing where your students are at, pre-assessments, filling gaps. What is their readiness? What is their conceptual understanding? All of those good pieces. And making sure that you confer with the student. You document what you have done with them and how well that their impact is making on their learning. But we do know that not all kids are capable of learning at that rate. And so when you know your students, sometimes they have to move down into the yellow tier, tier 2, where they need not just the classroom-based instruction, not just those good practices that work in your classroom, but they need some targeted instruction. On here it says give some time. It suggests 4 weeks. So if you're going to pull a student in for some intensive math intervention, give it some time. And I know that's something that consultants are always, probably saying to you too is, how long did you try that intervention for? Making sure that you give it some time. Tweak it as you need, but make sure you're not just giving up on it right away. Again, it talks about making sure that what you're doing may be aligned with the classroom instruction, but it may not be if you're doing gap filling. And it says that you should be making sure, again, that you are keeping up with what students in the tier 1 would be doing, but you're making sure that the instruction is at the student's level. We do know, again, that some students still, with targeted instruction, still struggle, and those become our red tier 3 students. Each time, less and less of your classroom would be moving into that individual instruction zone. This morning, was it Colleen, was it you that said that Anne was out doing the key math in your building? Oh, it's okay. So when you think about, that would be an assessment that your student support teacher or your student support consultant could help you with, where you're going to drill down a little bit further as to why a student would be having some math difficulties, and then you would make a plan accordingly. So this is the model. Again, I suggest you read that Sask Math document. There's so many good things in there.
I'm just one person that's part of the modified development for high school curriculum from SunWest. So there's a group of about 15 of us from all across the division that have been working on curating, collecting, and developing modified resources for not only math, but ELA and science as well. And so we've had support from our board to have 5 full days to pull these resources together. So it's a combination of student support teachers, some of our DLC teachers, as well as from Plenty to Kyle to all over the place. So we wanted a little bit of a platform here to say that this is what's coming soon. Our group decided to start with the younger grades first and then moving up towards the grade 12 grades. So for ELA, we started with A11 working towards B11, and we'll have resources ready for those courses by the end of the year. So stay tuned to how those are going to be shared and launched. We're working through that right now. We decided to work on the grade 10 science as well, so that is coming along. Some assessments and projects are coming together and will be again ready. As far as social studies and history go, we've left that one just because those curriculums are up for discussion at the ministry. We didn't necessarily want to go through all of the work to find out that there'd be some new curriculum coming our way. However, that's very, very slow. I see that. So we may renegotiate those topics next year, but we'll see. And then that brings us to math, which is why we're here today. Tracy is part of the math development team for this project as well. And they decided to go and start with Math 21 first. This is where I'm going to give it to you.
Yep. So there, I don't really need a double mic, but anyway, so with the when the teachers were brought together, it was decided that a lot of people already just adapt Workplace to, do that for a modified for the 11. And that there was not enough for the 21. So there are 3 teachers that have created assessments that will go along with the workbooks, the booklets from the Greater Catholic and Saskatoon Public, right? I think most people in our division are using those. So there are 3 ladies on that team, and then Nathan Harriman and myself are currently working on Math 11, and as of yesterday, Nathan finished videos for the first booklet, the Earning Money, and I am making detailed solutions for the booklets, because the answers are in there, but not an actual solution. So all of that will be uploaded to a course that we got. And then we're going to send what we've made out to people to ask if we're on the right track. And if we're not, we need to know, because we don't want to go down a path that's not the right way for everybody. We don't want to do things that people aren't going to use. So if you're interested in getting what we have for the first unit, you can just let me know or let Arlene know, and hopefully it'll be of benefit.
This is one thing that I did want to point out is available in the resource bank that can be really helpful for you with kids reflecting at the end of class, is the 4-point help scale. And it's just basically all the way to going from that they need to see you or somebody who can help them. It doesn't necessarily have to be you. It could be another student in your class, all the way up to they can be the person that teaches. So this is just quick and easy. You can download it. It's a free poster, so it prints out really nice. Anyway, it's just something to consider.
So just to wrap up a little bit too in this whole conversation of making an impact and how to think about our students as math learners, that whole idea that we've been talking about over the last, day 1 and today, about metacognition and helping students really understand their thinking about math is so important. Helping them become really successful math learners in terms of understanding those math concepts, being able to understand them fairly quickly and accurately, and being confident and kind of approaching math positively and productively, and relieving some of those anxieties that we've been talking about, and trying to support them in their math. Something that we were talking about, just to kind of lead into this slide, is that sometimes it's quite easy if a student, identifies the correct answer. What gets to be a little bit more tricky is if their thinking and how they arrived at that answer is truly correct or not. So trying to understand our learners a little bit more in order to support them wherever they are on their journey. And it really springs off of what Carol was mentioning too, about reaching all of our learners. So a good way to do that, and a very high impact strategy, is feedback. The feedback process is really important, and it's going to help our learners improve and achieve in their learning.
We've alluded to this a little bit, but don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's a lot of strategies that we can use, especially when we're looking at that chart with a really good surface, deep, and transfer learning. Those strategies do not only work in math, they work everywhere. And the same it goes with this, is just keep in mind that a lot of the stuff that we worked on last year with reading, and a lot of the reading strategies that we looked at, they will help you with math. So reading a question out loud, well, what does that do? That makes you focus, it makes you slow down and make you look at what the information actually is there. So that's a great strategy. Ask the same as you would ask if somebody was reading you something and you're asking about reading comprehension. Ask the same kinds of questions. What's happening? Why do they have 60 cantaloupes, right? What is going on? So ask them the same questions as you would if you were doing a reading comprehension. And then ask them to justify their reasoning, just like we do in number talks. Why? How? Be the one that asks all the questions. They might get annoyed with you, but it will make them think. And then focus on more how they explain their answer as to more so than if they get the right answer. So it's not necessarily that they get it right, but they can explain how to get there. So, and again, all the different ways you want to build that rich language. The pyramid game, remember the pyramid game we played last day where we had our backs and we were trying to make each other say the right math vocab. You want to build those skills with the kids, and you know me with my saying, don't say point, it's an and. And Tammy said a neat little trick that she used where they would put an ant in there and put a box around the ant, and that would make them remember that it wasn't really a decimal point, it was a little ant, and then they would remember to say and. So lots of cute little tricks like that. But you know, you want them to start using the proper language, because math is a language, and it makes it a lot easier. Like if you're talking about, I know suddenly if you're talking about slope and the next thing you know you're talking about gradient, the kids are like, what is happening? Well, it's the same thing. But if they learn how to do things interchangeably, then they become much more knowledgeable. So you want that proper language happening. Consider a special math word wall or integrating it into the current word wall that you have, and remember flexibility, right, as with everything. So this was something that I'm like, okay, there's so much information. We've talked about so many different things. Let's just take a minute and reflect on what we should be doing as a class, and what should we be doing in small groups or individual. So the things you want to consider possibly doing together are those warm-up, cumulative reviews, some of those mixed assessments that Stephen was talking about and that we were talking about, the Flashback Friday, the Friday 5. Those are the things you want everybody doing, because it doesn't really matter where you are and what outcome you're working on. You should be able to participate in that. And then the problem of the week, you might want to introduce that problem of the week to the full group so you don't have to do it 4 or 5 separate times. And your number talks could be full group. They could also be small group. New instruction could also be both. And those reflection or exit slips, that again should be bringing everybody back together. Whereas more individually, it takes time to do more of those outcome activities, the actual thinking and playlists. The work for the problem of the week, you probably want to do in smaller groups or individuals. Collaborating on and peer tutoring, reteaching, and sometimes new instruction. So just keeping in mind you can bounce back and forth on that.